So welcome to this Arrow Nordic webinar regarding intrinsic security. My name is Annette Jacobsen. I'm business unit manager at VMware for VMware at Arrow in Denmark, and I am the host representing the Nordics today. We have this morning lined up three great speakers with a different purpose. First, we will hear from IT security expert Kjeld Norman around Hackere's work and kind of explaining a lot about their tools and the way to do that. After that, we have Roger Samdal from VMware telling about intrinsic security. And last but not least, Jørgen Strandberg will tell us about Carbon Black and show some demo about that. If you have any questions during this webinar, please put them in the Q&A and we will get to them either during the presentation or after. And yeah, is how it's going to be. So Kjeld, the stage is yours. So please take it.
Excellent. Thanks. Well, hi, my name is Kjeld and I work in Dubex. I'm one of these type of persons who remember everything in pictures. So I have put up some pictures here of what I do in my spare time. I have a past in a family company called CSC Computer, where I got all the hardware I could play with, but were not allowed to play games. So I had to take things apart and play with software instead. And then I have been working in IBM for 16 years, taking care of the infrastructure and some governmental customers. And then I moved to Dubex 6-7 years ago, working primarily with security and incident response and in red teaming, where we are out playing or pretending to be hackers. And then I also do awareness training. In my spare time, I educate in IT-related stuff, like programming for coding pirates. This is, by the way, my workstation where I sit right now. And this is Coding Pirates. It's a volunteer work you can do for kids from 7 to 17 years old, and you can teach them everything. So, for example, yesterday we played with magnets. That was pretty fun compared to what happens when you put them close to a computer. But I want to start with the past. So just first, the slides here, they will be with Danish text, but it's Danglish. So there are a lot of pictures because I'm the picture guy. And I think you will get the point, even though it's in Danish. I didn't have the time to translate it all to English. But let's look at the past and let's look at what is threatening us today. Some of the topics that we hear about is supply chain attacks, when we talk about hackers and compromised systems and servers out there. And if we look further back in time about the first supply chain attack that existed, and that is actually the virus that we know as COVID-19 or something similar, where it infected something, and let's say a cow or a pig ate that bat maybe, and then the person who ate it infected other persons, and they infected other persons, and a lot of those, they died because it's a virus. And that's how supply chain attacks often happens, that something starts this infectious chain and then something out there dies. In 16 years ago, so 16 years ago, IBM made a project they called Project Adam, where they collected a lot of DNA samples from humans around the world. They only wanted to collect, I think, 100,000 samples, but they ended up collecting 1 million samples. And then they looked at the DNA for the male Y chromosome, because as you can see on the picture here, it's much smaller in the mass of DNA compared to a woman's DNA. So it was easy to track if there were any gene defects. And now you may be wondering, why am I telling this story? And I was talking about supply chain attack, but if you look back in time and see the people that died from the first infections that were there, then IBM found out that for approximately 60,000 years ago, we were only 2,000, let's call them people, but let's just, it could be different kinds of people like the Homo sapiens or Neanderthalers or Cro-Magnon. But there were 2,000 living somethings, and why only 2,000? Well, because most of the rest of the people that were there, they died. But those 2,000, they survived because they were different. They had a gene mutation that made them survive. And what I wanted to think about today, when we talk about supply chain attacks and hackers and what you have in your infrastructure, is that if everybody has the same thing, if everybody has an Office 365 and uses Microsoft, and there is something bad happening to that product, then everybody will die. But we have alternatives. And when shit hits the fan, so to speak, and you get a 0-day for the Exchange server and everybody dies, there are some who survives because they are running, for example, Lotus Notes, which is very old, or something else. So think about duality in what you select of products today. If you really want to survive something that is massively 0-day, unknown exploits that hits the internet. To understand this type of attacks, we need to get the definition straight. Maybe you know it already what hardware, software, and firmware is, but just to be clear, then hardware, when you attack that, it's something you can touch, like the computer, the physical parts. Software is the program running on it, and firmware is software put into a chip, for example. So it is actually hardware containing software, we call it firmware. And everywhere you can do a supply chain attack and infect something that you give to people. We have seen attacks from governments, from state-sponsored hackers like the Stuxnet, where they infected these Iranian centrifuges. And we have had this Eternal Blue, where NSA had a hacker tool that were leaked out in some mysterious ways, and some hackers got hold of it. And now they're using it actively. And we also saw that whoever used it first infected Maersk and a lot of other customers around the world. And lately we have this SolarWinds attack. And that is interesting because SolarWinds is a monitoring tool for all your servers. How are they doing? Are they well? And you have installed it on it, and you've given the SolarWinds software administrative access. So when somebody gets access to SolarWinds, they can destroy everything everywhere. Think about that. You could have installed it with least privileges possible, so it didn't have all that access. And then maybe they wouldn't be able to destroy as much as they really did. And then later we also saw this survey called Hafnium, where Exchange servers were vulnerable. There is a key to not being hacked, which is very easy. If you just follow these 3 advices. The first one is exposure. So if you have a server that is a web server, of course, it has to be exposed to the internet. So people can see your web server in your website. But if you have a lot of other servers and they are connected to the internet because they need services from the internet, why not just isolate them so they can reach China, for example, with a geo IP protection? Why not isolate them so you can't get into the server and set up some monitoring? So expose your server and your vulnerables, just like a radar with the military when they find flights flying over you and they shoot them down. Hackers, they see you on the radar, they attack you. And the second advice is patching. So if you haven't patched it, of course, all the robots that are scanning the internet will find your server, exploit it because you haven't patched it, and then you're game over. And the last one, if you use default passwords. If you just do these 3 things when you set something up and attach it to the internet, you reduce the risk of being hacked considerably. And if you then spray on top of that a 2-factor authentication when you log in, you're pretty good saved against most of the attacks that happens today. But then there's also one more thing that I would recommend. That is what we call SIEM as a concept. And that is that all the servers, all the humans you have in your organization's computers, all the printers, they can log what they're doing. And if you send that log to a central place where you can analyze what's going on, they can discover that a hack is ongoing or somebody's trying to do something malicious. It's just like having a fire alarm at home or a smoke detector, so you get an early warning. And SIEM as a concept today is essential if you have a company and you want to survive out there in the red ocean of hackers against your company. I have illustrated here as Sauron's eye. So we have that here where I am. And every time I run something malicious or try to have fun on my computer with different tools, they will see it and they will contact me and ask what you're doing. Not necessarily block it, but that's another case. Look at this picture here. All these names here, they are hacker names. So when you have a state-sponsored hacker, you give them a name today, which is actually an animal name. You can see there are dragons and bears and pandas here. And I want to give you some information about these animals here. So when you see them in the news, in the headlines on the newspapers in the future, you will know where they're from. Because, as I said, every hacker group or every hacker out there who does something spectacular, they will get a name with an animal name in it. And also every country will get a name with an animal in it. So the next time you see someone being hacked and there is a name of, for example, Fancy Bear or Cozy Bear or Deep Panda, you will know now that all the pandas, they are from China. And if it's something to do with a bear, it's from Russia. And a kitten, it's from Iran. And so on. You can see on the pictures here. So now you know. And if you hear about the Danish hacker group, they haven't been mentioned yet because we haven't hacked anything. Then it's most likely going to be the mute swarm because that's our national bird. So now you know all the hacker groups' names out there. Hackers are not just hackers. If you look at the term hacker, it's actually something positive, where you take something, you make it better, and you have hacked it. But we also have another term where we divide hackers into 3 different types of hackers: the good, the bad, and the one between. And we do that by giving them a hat with a color on it. So every white hat or hat hacker you hear about out there is a good hacker. It's someone who's trying to help your organization. Maybe they're getting paid for it, but they are the good guys. And the gray one is those between, most likely good guys, but they sometimes break the law. And the black hat hackers are people who have economical interest. They want to earn money or blackmail you or stuff like that. So they are the bad guys. So when you hear about black hat hackers, you know now that they are the bad guys. Doing forensics, doing investigations on who did what, who is hacking, and where did they come from, it can be hard to find good hackers, but there are so many bad hackers. And I'll just give you a hint here of what we see when we investigate incidents. For example, we have the script kiddie. That is that could be me, that could be you. It could be a kid who got hold of a tool, a hacker tool. And then when they use it, it's so good, so it actually works. And they get into systems, but they are very authoritative. So they off features by pulling stuff like that. Forensics-wise investigations, it's pretty hard to see who did it. And those hackers are often from 12 to 14 years old. We also see students. They are really good hackers. They have a lot of time, free time on their hands, so they can sit and analyze systems and poke around for months. Very persistent people. They get skilled, but they are still easy to find. Then there's the tourists. It's the most dangerous one because they make hit and runs. So when you're on a hotel, for example, you get a new hacker tool and you're an IT specialist, you're just going to try it, right? And then it works and you hack the company next to the hotel. And the data that they get hold of, they often brag about them in forums and share them with real black hat hackers that uses these data, these things that they get hold of as an entry into companies. So they get for free, for example, a login and a password for a company. Then we have the normal hacker, the black hat hacker, the thief. And we all know about them and how they work. And what is most popular at the moment is to blackmail people. So they destroy the data, and then you can get a key to unlock your data again if you pay a lot of money. And the cases that we are sitting with, it's in millions of dollars that they want for getting the key back. And then customers, if they pay up to 100, 200,000 Danish crowns, what I've seen. But sometimes it's also millions. So these hackers here, they have a very good salary, so to speak, with very not so much work involved. Then there's the destroyer. It's like Greenpeace. They want to deface a website because it sells fur, for example, or animals. It could also just be someone who wants to mess up things. Not so popular against other hackers because they destroy their stealth hacks that they have made. And then there's the ethical hacker, the white hat hacker. Of course, he gets all the blueprints for the company, tests stuff, and then he or she knows what has to be patched so it doesn't get hacked for real. When you have done these tests, when you've had hackers to test your company, you often end up also with an option called the red team exercise, where you hire people who go all in for hacking. So they dress up as people watering the plants, or utility men in blue suits, all kinds, maybe management people coming and bossing you around just to see if they can con you. So that was the different type of hackers. And then there is the one that I see the most. That is the robot, the AI part. So as a hacker today, you can buy a tool like a script kiddie, and then you can activate that tool, which is a robot that just scans the network and then auto hacks. Actually, it doesn't scan the network. It has services out there to do that work for it. And if you look at this picture here, then you can see all the different hardware companies, appliances that are connected to the internet. It's a picture from 2020. So all these companies get what we call a MAC address, but they make hardware that you can connect to the internet, which can then possibly be hacked. IoT stuff, for example. And with all these types of vendors and all these things attached to the internet, then there is constantly new things that can be hacked. And if you have machines out on the internet which scans it all the time and give you for free data of what can be hacked, then it makes the life of a hacker very easy and not much work again to be done as a hacker today. So this here is one of the search engine. It's a Chinese one called Sumai. There's another one called Census. And a third one, which is the one I use the most, is called sjældent.io. It works like Google, so you can go and search for stuff, but not for stuff on the website, on the front side of the web, as you normally do in Google, but you can search for things behind the website or behind the server. For example, you can go and search for a SCADA, for electronics attached to the internet that can control something like a bridge or the air condition of a house and stuff like that. And as you can see on this picture here, you can search for Siemens or Modbus or specific brands also, and you can search for a country. And when you do that, you get a list of everything in that country or with that search phrase that this search engine has found vulnerable. It has already probed it, as you can see to the left here. CVEs, common vulnerabilities, has been indexed. So the hacker's tool get all the information of what it should try to do against that IP address, that host out on the internet that has been found vulnerable. It doesn't have to probe it first. And then you just take all these data, you can pay for it and get it as the first person in the world, or you can get it very quickly in real time, or you can just wait for it so you can get it for free. It's up to your wallet as a hacker, what you want to do. But if you pay, as you can see here, $900 per month, you get 1 billion possible targets out there that can be hacked. And if you automate things and you just give that list of targets to your tool, like the one on the picture here, it's a CD that you can boot up on your computer called Kali, and it contains a lot of hacker tools. And then you can start a program called Metasploit or Armitage, Cobalt Strike, and you get a visual GUI, a graphical user interface, which you can attach to this scanning engine you saw before. And then things will just pop up on your screen. And if it becomes red, as you can see here, it means that the infection or the hack has gone good. So you can right click on the devices and you can, for example, share the screen of the hacked item out there. Or you can listen in on the microphone. You can transfer file forth and back. You can install software. You can look at the printed papers, what is being printed, and so on. You can take full control of the system. And everything is fully automated, fully auto-updatable. So when new hacks arrived, someone finds it, it's also added to the program, and then it can auto-hack for you. So you can see it's pretty easy to be a hacker today. It takes 30 minutes to be unknowingly people on the internet to be an elite hacker today if you get this instruction on how to set this up. So that is the danger out there. That is the threat that we're facing. This is a picture of me trying to search for SCADA devices for water facilities in Denmark. And there's the search line at the top. And you can see that there's a lot of control panels that pops up where you can log into a water plant and do stuff. And here's a nuclear service login for a nuclear facility in Switzerland. Also popped up from a scanning in this Shodan engine I showed you before. The most hacked things out there when this search engine here is used is remote desktop. As you can see here, you can get pictures of people's remote desktop. And if you can guess the login and password, you're in. And most often these servers that are exposed here are VPN servers for companies where everybody connects to. And if you can get in there as a hacker, you've got full control of the entire company's data infrastructure, because many shares are also attached to these remote desktop shares where you put your company data. And then it's very easy for a hacker to get access and then infect all the data or decrypt them or encrypt them so they are useless unless you pay for getting them back. Yeah, if you want to scan for remote desktop as a hacker in Denmark, it takes around 2 hours to scan Denmark, which is approximately 12.5 million servers or IP addresses out there in the IP version 4 ranges. And you can do that on the McDonald networks, 2 hours, and then you've got mapped every RDP in Denmark. And then you can try to log into them after you have done your scannings. And if you're lucky, there's an exploit for remote desktop, and then that will give you instant access. You don't even have to guess the login and password on the remote desktop. It's not a matter of if they can get in, if you've patched good enough, because they can just pay for getting exploits to hackers. This here is a page called Serodium, where you can log into that web page. And if you are a hacker or you're a developer and you find something that can exploit, for example, a Windows system by running some special code that you found, then you can sell that exploit to Serodium, and they will pay you, as you can see on this picture here, up to $1 million for an exploit that works on Windows to give you a remote code execution possibility. So you can run code on other people's computers running Windows. And then Serodium sells it. So if you want to buy a hack, which is unknown, unpatched, then you can just contact Serodium, say, hey, I want to pay for the remote code execution hack that you have. You pay, you get the code, the exploit, you put it into a robot, and then you hack the world. Yeah, $1 million is costly, but if you have a ransomware business and you get millions of dollars in return, then it's still a good business for the hackers. You can also buy the exploits for phones. And you know, people's phones are often connected to their emails, and then you get information about the entire company, all the infrastructure, who's talking to who, and you can also manipulate people by sending mails on behalf of whoever you hack's phone. And then I can convince you that you should install this update that I send you, or this video codec so you can see the funny cat video I'm sending you. And you will trust me because I am one of your colleagues or your friends on work. 2.5 million, that's a lot, but yeah, it's possible. There are countermeasures. You're going to hear about it later today about the carbon black, for example. And one of the countermeasures that often is used against these zero-day attacks, unknown, is sandboxing. And sandboxing can be seen as this guy here on the picture who is eating the food or tasting the food for the king in older days. And if it was bitter and he fell on the floor and died, then the king wouldn't get the food. So this is a sandbox today. The food is the files that you download, like a PDF file. And the taster there is a virtual machine that opens up the file, analyzes it, maybe try to open the PDF and see if it's malicious. And if the PDF file destroys the virtual machine, sends out data, does anything that is malicious, that's okay, because the sandbox is intended for that purpose. The sandbox will just die, close down, start up, and be exactly as before, and ready to do a sandbox of a new file, and you will not get the file. You'll be protected. Of course, when you have sandboxes and you have things like that, hackers will try to avoid sandboxing. And there are a lot of techniques for hackers to do that, like probe for, is there a sound card? Is there any sound on the microphone? That hacker program that is trying to execute when the sandbox tests it. It can sleep, for example, for an hour. And then after an hour, it will activate itself. But sandboxes also have countermeasures for that. So it's a cat and mouse game today. So sandboxes, for example, speed up time. So 1 second is 1 second. Does anything happen? No. 1 second is 1 hour. And then the malware will awake and run. And then the sandbox says, aha, gotcha. So they are battling for trying to detect versus trying to dodge the sandbox. And depending on what type of sandbox you have, some are better than others. I have tested the Carbon Black you're going to hear about later, and it's really good. They have a lot of extra detections that are smarter than the normal sandbox. And the normal sandbox, you will see that in many of the commodity antivirus products you can install on your computer as a private person. When hackers get in, many times it's just because they guessed your password, or maybe the password you had, the login and password, were leaked out. And statistically, I don't know if this is a good thing to mention statistics, because 42% of all statistics are useless, right? But Verizon made an analysis of what happened with a digital intrusion and why, and they found out that 81% of the times it was because a password was bad password, just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or it was compromised somewhere out there, for example, in a social media, and then had been reused in a company. So my login at Facebook was the same I used on my computer and work. And when you say passwords to people and say you should have a good password, that will stop the hackers from, for example, brute forcing, where they try different combinations and guess it. So if you have a good password, they can do that. Then people tend to do this head on the table, because systems today, they dictate to you what your password should be. And the most common password policy is that it should be 8 characters, 1 big letter, some special characters, a number, and your name cannot be in the password, and so on, right? So when you try the password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it says, it's not long enough. And then you try 7, 8, and so on. And finally, after 10 attempts, maybe, it says, okay, accept it, and you can remember your password, right? But hackers know this. So statistically, if the password length is minimum 8 characters, then the hackers out there, when they want to brute force your password, they will try with 8 characters. People are too lazy to add characters, 9, 10, 11. So statistically, 8 characters. The big letter is very often the first one in the password, because then it's done, then you don't have to think about that rule. And the number is often a year. It could be a birth date. It could be a phone number, or a social security number. It could be the E, which when you turn it around looks like 3, and an O could be 0 in a word. So hackers also know that when they test something they want to brute force. The special characters is very often the exclamation mark, or the @ sign instead of an A, or maybe a dot. You have got so many more special characters, but you're afraid to use them, because if you change keyboard or get to an English machine, you can't find it again, right? But the one is that is above the number 4, for example. You can see that in the lower right corner. I have never seen that, or very, very, very seldom seen that one used in a password. That's also a special character. And hackers tend to leave out a lot of special characters when they brute force, because it takes too long time. Then also, if there has been a password leak, and in 2000 maybe, I had a password called Winter 2000, then hackers will try that password on my account for 2001, 2, 3, 4, and so on up until 2021. So when you're forced to change your password every 30 days, there will be a pattern in your passwords. And often humans are good at spotting the patterns when they see a password. And then hackers, of course, try to automate testing all the different combination of that pattern. Then we also see that cats and dogs' names, your friends' family, your kids' names, and then things around you on your disk is used as a password. So coffee cup, for example, or pencil 1, 2, 3 is very often used. So don't use that. And then last but not least, what looks good on your keyboard, like the QWERTY line, is also very often used. So don't use that. When you select passwords for your logins on the internet, social media, for example, the ideal thing would be that you had different passwords everywhere. You can use the same login name. It's often your email address, but use different passwords. And the ideal thing would also be that you could remember them, so you don't have to write them down anywhere, right? But the factual password policy for a human is that we reuse it. So we use the same login and password everywhere. And if one thing gets compromised, then hackers have tools that will try. I'll go to the last slide here. Things like this page here, you can see to the lower right corner that says namecheck.com. Then you can go and check if an account with this login name exists on all these different logins on the internet. And then they can automate trying to, for example, harvest attachment in emails for your Gmail account. And if they're lucky, there is a passport from when you want to loan some money in the bank and you had to send them your passport or something similar to that. So what would be better would be to write down the password and have different passwords. That's not ideal, but that's better than having the same password. So you have different passwords. And people tend to write down passwords and put it on yellow stickers. And then you can look in at the windows today on open offices and you can pass by a colleague and you can see it hanging on his screen or on the billboard, as this guy here, he had. And he worked in a TV company, and people with 4K TVs, they could zoom in on the back here and see the login and a password. And that was for their Twitter account. And then hackers wrote a lot of funny messages on the Twitter account. TV5 Monday was the people here being compromised. And later that day, they found access to the VPN, to the connection to the company, to the virtual private internet. And then they got into the company's intranet, and then they messed everything up there. So they had to stop transmitting later that day, just because the password was exposed on that little note in the back of this interview here. So it's better, but you can see you should hide the yellow stickers. So of course there's things that are better, even better than that. But no matter what you do, sometimes things out there where you had the best password possible gets compromised. And if they're not good enough at taking care of encrypting, of taking care of not exposing your clear text password, then hackers get hold of it. And hackers use those compromised data to do at least these 4 things here: spam you with buy Viagra or something like that, send you mails that they have seen you on camera and you've been watching naughty movies or something like that, and they have recorded it, and they will send that recording to all your friends if you don't pay them some money. And then they add the password from the password leak and say, see here, I have your password, so you know that I'm telling the truth. It's a lie. But people pay them because they in fear thinks that they will send all the movies that they have recorded of them to their friends. Then they try to log in with the login and password on all the social media and maybe on the company's VPN. And last but not least, they will sell the data. And then when they're done with it, they'll just leave it there for everybody up for grabs. And that's where I look at the data and do some statistics on them. You can go and test if you've been compromised on this web page, haveibeenpwned.com, or owned with a P. And you can type in your login there and you can see it gets red if you have any compromises, and then you can take care of it, change the password. You can also type in your password there and see if anyone in the leak database, the big leak database here, have used the same password as you have used. I'm typing in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 here, and it's a pretty bad password because almost 8 million other people have used that. But if you type in your real password that you use today, someone could misuse it. So don't do that. Type in the one you used before you changed it, and then you can see if your password policy, the things that you choose as a password, is a good one, or if it's something that everybody else is also using. And if it says 0 hits, you can tap your shoulder and say, good work. If it says 8 millions, you should use some other password strategy when you select a password. This page here is from the dark web. You can go there and you can see the address at the top if you have a Tor browser, a dark web browser. And then you can search for passwords. And just for the lulz, I searched for arrow.com. And I found 3,134 different email addresses. So for my spam campaign, selling Viagra, I have a lot of potential customers here. And I also found 2,861 passwords in clear text when I did the search. I can't show you everything because it can't fit the screen. So there are 2 screens below here filled with email addresses for people being exposed with their password. And this here is all the passwords. I removed the email addresses, so you can't see the who's using what. But you can see that 1,600 of the password were greater than 7 characters. That means 8 and greater than that. Most likely something that could be used today. And 672 of them contain the number 1, and so on down there. If I try them everywhere with everything that has anything to do with arrow, most likely one of them would work. And I only need one to get access to a company to do havoc in there. If I want to brute force, maybe I go one back slide here. If I want to brute force the, how many was it? The 1001 encrypted passwords that were there, then I can upload them to the cloud, and then I can get the cloud to try to crack them for me, to guess what it could have been, that encrypted password. And this statistics here is many years old. I can see it was 1,563 encrypted password I got hold of. It says that it takes 10 characters, it only takes 6 days to compromise, to guess a password. It depends on what type of encryption the password has been made in, but there are things out there on the internet where you can upload an encrypted password. You get hold of that as a hacker, and then you can, for free, get that cloud service to find the clear text password of the encrypted password for you, up to 10 characters. And that even can be done for the Wi-Fi password. So you can get access to the neighbor's Wi-Fi, for example, if you sniff some of the encrypted traffic that is going on when they log on, and send it to these crackers here for free. So using a good password is still essential, even though you have this 2-factor today, which will protect you. So if someone gets hold of your password, they can't use it. So get a password manager. This is a code generator for you, so you can write down good passwords on your yellow stickers. But better if you, of course, can get hold of a password manager. I'll get back to show you what that is if you don't know it. But here's a tip. If you have custom characters in your country, like we have in Denmark with the A, Ø, O, then when you use that, hackers' lists gets messed up of login and passwords, and then they will remove all those entries because they do not work in their hacker tools for automating the robot login to web pages. You can see at the bottom here that A, Ø, O becomes something very strange in the list that they have when they try to use it very often. And also the separator between the login and the password and all the hackers' lists here of compromised passwords are being messed up if you use the same character in your password, and if it's leaked out in clear text. So that will also get you removed from the list and reduce the probability for you being compromised. Password managers are something that are normally in your browser. So when you hit something on the web and you need to log in, the password manager will take care of it for you. These are some of the most popular password managers. I use 3 of these, and the one in the middle here is something made in Denmark. That's interesting if you don't want to leak data out into the cloud, for example, or for GDPR reasons, stuff like that. And here's an example of LastPass, where I'm just showing you install that in your browser. You log in with one password, and LastPass will remember all your passwords for you in the future. And here I'm trying to log into my Gmail, and normally you can cache up the login and password in your browser, but if someone compromises the browser, they can get hold of that password. So here the password manager is filling in my email for me, and if I have a lot of different accounts, I can select it from a list, as you can see, and then I just press sign in, and the next part will be typing the password, and the password manager will do that for me. I don't have to do anything, and of course, every login I have everywhere, I have added the 2-factor authentication. So my phone pops up and say, hey, Kjell, are you trying to log in? Yeah, I am. And if I'm not, because someone looked at over my shoulder when I was at the library and tried to log in with the same login and password on my Gmail when I left the library, and I'm bicycling home and my phone pops up and it says, are you logging in? No, I'm not. So even though they get my real password, they can't get access. That will save you from being compromised, the 2 factors. So add that on everything you can. Of course, the password manager can get compromised also and hacked. And that is a challenge, but if you have a two-factor on your account out there on the internet, which hasn't anything to do with the password manager, they still can't use that leaked or hacked data. So two-factor essential today. One thing I also want to give you information about is metadata. And metadata is something that is behind, for example, the website we talked about earlier, where you can use the showdown to look at what type of web server is it, Apache, and can it be hacked because it hasn't been updated. Then also files you have on your computer that you send to people contains a lot of metadata. So these examples here on the screen right now is 5 different files I had on my computer. I opened them up, I right-clicked on them and said choose properties. And you can see here on the first one that it says that it's been made by Foxit Reader PDF something. Instead of using Adobe, this guy here is most likely using Foxit Reader. So as a hacker, you now know that. And maybe it even says the version, as you can see in number 2 here, where it says Word 2016. So maybe you can use an exploit for Word for 2016 against this guy here, who uploaded a file to the internet or sent you a file in a mail. That maybe he filled out a form that you sent him. You can see the number 3 is from the financial department, where you have to get some reimbursement for something. And the owner of the document, the creator of the document, is most likely someone who works in financials. So when you get hold of a document like that as a hacker, you send them CFO fraud mails, directly access to people working with financials in that company. And so on. You can see which computer that has made the document, which user on the computer, which printer have printed it, even which share this document has been placed on is often contained in the documents. You can remove all these data just by, in the same properties page, at the bottom, there's an option called remove properties and personal information. And then most of it is gone. Will you remember to do that when you send documents to people? No, but now you know that there are metadata there. And it's also very important to know that when you send people things in chats, that chats can be intercepted, but most of them cannot. It's between you, for example, and Facebook, and then someone on the other side, or LinkedIn, or wherever you're chatting. But be aware of the safe chats, like the Signal, for example. They often transfer the file where they do not change the file. So if I send you a picture, the picture will contain all the original information as it did when I took the picture. If you use Facebook or LinkedIn or Google's chats, they will remove all the metadata. So when people in the other end get the picture, they can see the picture, but they can't see all the metadata. So safe chats are actually unsafe for you when you transfer files. This here is an example of what kind of metadata is in a picture. There is a lot. And the most important one for hackers would be, for example, the location of someone. If it's GPS located inside the picture, there's often GPS information, and also which type of phone that took the picture. And it often says Android and then some phone type, and you can see that it hasn't been patched for many years because it's old. And then you know there are exploits that works against this type of phone, and you can attack directly. Also, pictures can be dangerous if you, for example, look at fingerprints. This guy here from, I think it was 2014, Jan Chrysler from Germany, he sat on first row, took pictures of governmental officials who were speaking there and of their fingers, and then he printed on folio, the plastic that is transparent that you used in older days on showing pictures on the wall with this, I don't know what it's called, but he printed on this type of folio and cut out the fingerprint, and then he used that fingerprint to open their computers where they had fingerprint readers and their phones. Be aware of when you expose your fingerprints, because we use biometrics today to authenticate, and we can only change the fingerprint 10 times. Also, your face is being used today for Face ID. So you have to take care of that biometric login, especially if you use this as a two-factor authentication. There are tools out there you can download. This is one for free that can harvest the website for files, for example. And then you can type in, I typed in Datatilsynet or a company name here, and it will harvest all the files, analyze them, and tell me what type of computers are they running, Windows or Macintosh, which type of programs have they installed, which kind of printers do they have, which shares do they have, and so on. And it takes like 15 minutes to do this analytics and download all the files and get this result. And it's for free. So you can see hackers have a very easy time finding out what the company is doing, what type of software or hardware for that matter they have. Also think about Bluetooth. It's leaking out all the time from your phone, from your headset. Metadata is in your Visa card, for example. So you can scan that when you pass people in the airport, for example. There are scanners for RFID on people. And when you go and buy stuff, many things today can contain an RFID. So you can scan it when you go into a store, a shop, and you leave it again. It can be scanned, so they know a lot of things about you. For example, which size of pants do you have? Because the pants contains an RFID, and when you throw it into the washing machine knows how to wash these pants because the RFID says it cannot be washed at more than 40 degrees, for example. And it's a black pants, and then you have added a red shirt, for example, and it will alert you if you have red and white shirts because they will get pink if you wash them. So there's a lot of smartness in all of these things that will also be misused in the future because the data will be collected and compared and then misused. When hackers today work, they want to hit you directly, and phishing is one of the most efficient ways to do that. So they send you a mail, and they have your email from, for example, surveys like you can win the iPad and stuff like that. And 1 second, there's something popping up here. Yep. Oh, it was nothing. Sorry. And these information here can look harmless, but hackers use them to profile you if you're young, old, if you work as a doctor or as whatever, and then they can target you. Also, when you get a mail and there are tracking in the mail, like a pixel, a white pixel, that when you open the mail, the pixel will be retrieved from the hacker's servers. They can see what time did you open the mail and from which time zone are you most likely then located. Is it in Europe or Asia or US? And they can see a lot of other things also, like which type of operating system are you running? Because when you retrieve that little white pixel in the mail, it's a browser that normally does that, or a mail program. It sends out something called a user agent. I will show you this. But just for the example, you can see here, I have been renting a movie at Blockbusters. I have a mother-in-law, and I wanted to see this movie called Killers from Nibe. And I got a confirmation for it. And I'm not showing the pictures included in that mail. But when I press that show pictures, I can see the Blockbuster logo here. It's retrieved. And Blockbuster now knows that this email address has this IP address, which is shown in, not on this picture here, but is shown in the log file on the server. And this is the user agent that shows them also that this person here has, for example, Chrome 62 browser and is running Windows. So hackers get lists of people with Windows, Linux, Macintosh, and different browser types and different browser versions. So when an exploit is found for example, Internet Explorer or Chrome, they take that exploit code and they merge it with all the lists of known people who's running this. And then they directly send them a mail to directly attack them. And that speeds up the hack and makes it much more efficient for them. All the code to do the exploit is very often free on the internet. Exploits are called CVEs. So you can try to Google that. And if you type in exploit and then Internet Explorer or whatever program you know that the person is running, you will get these types of links for exploits databases to see how you do it. So it's not hard to be a hacker, as you can see. We did a phishing campaign here, as you can see on this small movie clip, against 7,500 people, and 70% of those who opened up a mail, which we have crafted for them, had devices, hardware, private hardware at home, which was not patched up to date according to the browser version and the operating system that they were running. So it makes it very easy for hackers to target them. The hackers, they use spoofing, for example. So when you get a mail, you can see it's from IKEA, but it's not. It's been spoofed. They can change the text up there, or they send you mails directly to your phone when they know you're on the move from or to work, for example. And then the address will be so long that you can't see it on your phone. It says from Kjell Norman at dubex.dk. And then at the end, you can't see that. It says, not Dubex, but instead the hackerservers.com. And you think it's from me, and the email address looks legit. People today are really good at spotting bad phishing. So when there's broken English, stuff like that, they say, I won't fall for that. So hackers today, they buy their stuff. They buy translations from professional translators. So there are no spelling errors in mails, and they use a lot of tricks. And if you want to see one of them, you can try it with your phone to scan this QR code. It's not dangerous. It's a phishing link where when you hover your finger and you put it on the link on your phone, it will normally pop up and show what the link is going to. Or when you hover your mouse over the link on this one here, it will give you a web page to something called lawserver.com, where there is a link you can hover your mouse over. And you can see it's going to your bank, for example. But when you click it, it will not go to your bank. And that's because they have lured you out into a web page with a web browser. And a web browser can understand JavaScript, which normal mail programs can't. They won't interpret JavaScript, which is a programming language. So if you look behind the web page where I'm doing this phishing example for you, you can see at the moment you press the link, the code behind the page will go and change the link. So everything that will scan the page before you press the link will say, it looks legit. It's going to the page that it says it's going to, you can press the link. But when you press it, it goes somewhere else. Feel free to try it. It's not dangerous. As I said, just remember to use HTTPS, and it's a honeypot. The website it's made for luring in hackers. So if it redirects to the run page, try again with the same test.htm URL. Also be aware, if you have had a compromise of your mail ever, and it's a web mail, hackers tend to put in forwarding functions. So they get a copy of your mail. So when you have recovered it, everything is good. There is a forwarder. And every time you get a mail, they can read it. So when they need to use your mail account again, they'll just send a password reset request, and then they get that one also. And then they reset your password, they take over your mail account, and then you're screwed again. So check the forwarding function in your mails if you have been compromised ever. Also, it's a good idea to go and check who has accessed your webmail. You can see there's a lock. Every webmail out there has this for Google and Yahoo and Microsoft, everything. And then you can see the country and the IP addresses. And if it says Somalia or NSA or something like that, you might change your password and add two-factor to it. So it's harder for them. And of course, never type in a password if it doesn't say HTTPS there at the top of your browser line, because then it can be intercepted. It's clear text when you type something and send it to the server. So that's just a good advice. Also, people see these pop-ups where there's a security problem with a certificate when you are visiting an HTTPS page. And if you press OK to that, the hackers they can intercept communication which is encrypted, because you're actually only communicating with the hackers then, and they are taking the information that you're sending to the bank, for example, and encrypting it and sending it to the bank. So they are hackers in the middle or man in the middle, and you have accepted that because you accept this pop-up. So you never accept pop-ups like this. Investigate why it's there. There is something wrong if you get this pop-up, definitely. What they want you to do most often is to get a file. And if you don't have a sandbox or carbon black, stuff like that, it contains very often macros. And when you press that button up there at the top of the Word or Excel or PowerPoint, where it says activate content, activate macros, that's where the infection happens. So try to avoid that. Contact the sender and ask why there's macro in it if there shouldn't be any. they can look in different ways. And very often they try to lure you and say that it has been protected or has to be scanned or something like GDPR, like this here. And then you will think, okay, well, that's legit. I'll press the enable content button, and then you get hacked. If you have a solution that can block child processes from your Word, Excel, or whatever you have of Office document, that will stop macros in 99.9% of the cases. And something like the Microsoft ATP package actually does that. So I can highly recommend that. If you do not have a solution, then have a look at the Microsoft ATP. I'm not trying to sell you anything here. Where I work, we don't even sell that. So it's just very good. I have stumbled upon that when we are out doing red team exercises or pen tests, and it has stopped us from doing all the bad stuff that hackers do. You can upload your document if you want to test them on sites like VirusTotal, and they will scan your document. So if you're afraid it contains something malicious for you, there are like 75 different antiviruses scanning the document. Also a URL you can upload there. But be aware that the document contains the metadata, and it can also contain customer data, and hackers can get those documents from VirusTotal. They can pay VirusTotal to get samples from them, as if they were security researchers that wanted to analyze the document. They can also get it, and then they get hold of all your data. So be very careful when you upload data to VirusTotal for getting a scan and a verdict if it's a bad or a good document. So now you know. And also be cautious for installing applications where your phone dictates it on your computer, because often phones try to convince people to install something on a computer, and then the computer can leak data out via the phone application. And then that way, the hackers can bypass the firewall you have in your company and the antivirus solution they have on your firewall, for example, stuff like that. And here's an example from Google's App Store where they found 145 programs with keyloggers in it. So when you type on your computer or keyboard, it will be sent out to the hacker via the phone. No matter what they do, it's the same thing that happens. They get hold of your data, they destroy something, and then you have to pay. And that's just a waste of time and money, of course. And you can do these few things: 2 factors, have a good password, do not expose your servers as a mitigation. The last thing I just want to give you a heads up on is to be very careful about SMSs and calls, phone calls. They will call you and say that they are from the IT department or from the government, from the police, whatever, and it's a spoof number. Call them back. Ask for the number, call them back. That will stop it. And also you'll get an SMS telling you that you've been infected with COVID-19, or you have to pay some taxes, or your FedEx delivery is delayed and you have to pay 10 Danish crowns for getting it. And they just want to harvest your credit card. There's a link in there. People tend to believe phone SMSs more than if they get a mail. So hackers has turned to using smishing today and vishing, whether it's video or a voice conversation. They call you and try to convince you. Maybe you have already gotten calls from Microsoft, which want to help you with the computer. They are not that successful, but real good hackers do use the same techniques, and they are successful, especially with the 2-factor, where they tell you they want to migrate you from Office 365 to 367, and then you just have to accept the migration. So please tell me what the 2-factor code is in the phone. So think about that when they call you. The last part I have today is going back to the supply chain attack that we had at the start, where some of the hardware things we get today, they contain something malicious. You get a present, for example, you get a new keyboard, you get a new mouse, you get a fan for your computer, and then there's something built into it. As you can see on this picture here, it's keyloggers. They are intended, the 2 first and not the one in the middle with the arrow with it on, but the others are intended to put in between your computer and your keyboard. So if you have a laptop, you don't have an external keyboard normally, you have that with you. You can use these techniques, but for a stationary computer, or when you have a docking station, it's very often used, or on the library, for example. So just pull out the keyboard, put in the keylogger into the docking station, and then the hackers can see what you're typing. These keyloggers here come with with storage. So you can store up to gigabytes of data or many years of typing. And it also comes with Wi-Fi, so they can sit on the parking lot and see what you're typing. The one with the red arrow, you can get that where you can build it into a keyboard yourself, or you can get keyboards where it's been built into the keyboard already. And then you just go and exchange whoever you want to see what is typing, his or her keyboard. And when they start up their computer and they type in the BIOS password, the hard disk encryption password, anything that normally cannot be keylogged because it's before Windows or whatever you're running Mac has started up, it will be recorded because it's a hardware keylogger. So this is dangerous and this is undetectable with software. You have to have something that measures the keyboard to detect this or take it apart. And you can see here, I have built it into a keyboard at the lower left corner here. And these things can be built into all kinds of things you get today. So here's an example of this is called a mouse jack. Sorry. It doesn't matter what it's called. It's a rubber duck, but this is an attack where you build something into a USB stick. So when you plug in a USB stick to your computer, it just starts typing on your computer. And if you combine things, hardware attacks today, for example, a keyboard that automatically types when you put it in a USB stick and storage, you can do attacks like, do I have a video of it? No, I don't. But you can do attacks where you, for example, start up a fake lock screen. So when you go and get coffee and you forget to lock your screen, the hacker or the cleaning guy will put this USB stick into a computer, run this malicious code which only locks your screen and records in software. And the same type of attack can be used if you have this type of mouse. You can see the picture here. And this little dongle, the Logitech dongle, hasn't been updated, the firmware in it. Then the hackers can again sit on the parking lot and use that dongle as a keyboard, as a remote keyboard, and type on your computer. That is what is called a mouse jacking attack. And you can fully automate that. You can build it into hardware, and then you can activate it on demand. And hardware today has been so stealth-made with malicious things in it. So you can get charging cables for your phone, as you can see here, and you can have it triggered by remote controls, by Bluetooth, or by timers, for example. So when you charge your phone with the new cable you got as a present, or maybe you were at the airport and somebody switched it because they just borrowed it for a minute, or maybe you were in a conference and you had it in your computer and you went for coffee and they changed the cable, it can attack you. And I wanted to do a live demo of how this looks, but it's pretty hard here on the camera. So I recorded some small movies, and this here is showing the attack where you forget to lock your computer and something is being executed. The program that is running is undetected by the antivirus because it doesn't do anything malicious. And here you can see it's presenting a program, a screen splash where it looks like the key, the computer has been locked, and then you're typing in your code, and it's been exfiltrated to me as the hacker using a name request on the internet. Then you have to have something that can analyze your name request to see if there's any malicious data in it. And it can be pretty hard to detect. If you're afraid of something being put into a computer, which can type as a keyboard or exfiltrate data, you can get these type of condoms, USB condoms, where they are very cheap and they contain the same she and he plug as you have in your computer and the thing you put into it. But 4 of the wires has normally been connected, but in this case, 2 of them has been disconnected. That's the data cables. So you can charge things using a USB condom, but you cannot use it for data transfer, like getting phone pictures into a computer, stuff like that. And that makes your computer a bit more safe when you plug something into it, which could contain the hardware attack. But you can also today get hold of something that can measure the hardware, like it's called a evil USB detector. And then it can see if there's power consumption on the things you put into a computer. And if it's abnormal, it will light up red for you, for example. And in this case here, I'm showing you something that can detect if you put something into a computer, will try to overload it with, for example, 220 volts, like this USB killer stick you can see in the picture does. it charges itself from the 5 volts that is inside of your computer in the USB plug. And when it's charged up to 220 volts, it fires it to back to the computer and it fries the computer. So it looks like a normal USB stick. You plug it into a computer and then it doesn't work anymore. So now you know why you shouldn't take a USB stick and put it into your computer, even if you're an IT guy and know what you're doing. It could kill your computer. I have a little video of that also here, where you can see that it's protecting my computer, and the sparks you see there close to my fingers, it's actually 220 volts trying to be put into my computer by the USB killer. And things like this, hardware attacks stuff can be bought online. It's commodity. You can see here the USB Killer Pro kit costs 77 euros. And you can get a even bigger kit with remote controls also. So yeah, now you know. Now you are most likely much more aware. I don't know what the time says, but we are almost there, right?
Yeah, I think we're pretty close, Kel. I think it's a little overtime.
Oh no, it's not. But we're done. That was the last slide. So remember all the information you get here of what you can do of evil stuff. Don't misuse it. And if you have any questions or any good ideas, feel free to write me. Look me out on the social media. It doesn't cost anything, even though I'm a consultant. And maybe we will meet again. I have a lot of stories for you when we have more time than just an hour.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kel. And as I said yesterday, I was very innocent yesterday, and today I'm just totally paranoid. So yeah, thank you for that, Kel. And if there's, as you said, Kel, any questions or anything, you can also direct them to us. So
there were one question about password managers. There was I use LastPass on Windows and OnePass on Apple devices.
Okay, that's cool. So thank you for that, Kel. And now, Roger, I hope you can save us.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
And help us out to be more secure. So now we know that they have all the tools to get into our systems. So
yeah, do you see my presenter's view or my main view?
We see you're presenting.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so my name is Roger Samdal, work for VMware in the Nordics. Always when I'm listening to security sessions like this, I feel like I want to give up. it's like, oh my God, it's so much to think about. It's so many security threats out there. And if we put that into perspective into our customers, it's even worse because they have to take care of a lot of stuff. It's not only their end users and devices, but it's also their data centers, all the things they do in the cloud, the networking, all the applications. It's a nightmare, basically. So it's not an easy task. I wouldn't say that we have a magic license that solves it all. It's not. We have to work structurally. We have to sort of think of security from this first building block when we architect a new platform. But again, it's not easy. I will be the first to say, I've been working with IT for 30 years now. I started off in school, actually did some hacking as well, just because I was curious. And I think that's a lot of kids these days are curious. They want to, it's exciting. They want to test it out. They want to do stuff and see what's happened. But that can create havoc in the enterprises. So VMware's approach to security, we're in the middle of this. We are part of the problem, basically. But we also have now a platform that can sort of gather everything together into one, both from a technical perspective, infrastructure perspective, application perspective, but also from an organizational perspective, because we need to think as one when it comes to security. So VMware security, we want to look holistically at this from the end users, the distributed workforce. With the pandemic now going on, people are spread all over the place. People work from homes, from their offices, somebody still, from their vacation homes, whatever. We need to make sure that we deliver applications and services to the end user wherever they are on their devices in a secure way. And from the sort of infrastructure applications perspective, the clouds, the data center and everything, it has to be secure as well. If we move an application from one data center to the cloud, for instance, there's a lot of customers doing that now. How do you take care of security? All the policies that you had in your old data center, how do you apply those in the cloud? Is it possible to do that? And of course, tear down the silos when it comes to the organization. There's a lot of cool stuff going on when it comes to creating new applications. The developers out there using new tools and stuff, but they need to integrate towards the operations teams and of course also the security teams. So VMware's approach to security is sort of trying to bring everything together here and create one unified experience when it comes to security. But again, I would be the first one to say it's not only one license that's going to sort of solve everything. You need to think about this. And the presentation from Kjeld here is kind of scary because the threat out there, you don't know what's going to happen in 1 hour or tomorrow or within 1 year. So how do you protect yourself against something like that? VMware's approach to this is building security into our platform to try to make it easier for you guys out there. We have a unique position with what we are doing because we are in the middle of everything here. If you look at the applications and services, take that as a starting point. An application needs infrastructure in order to work. It needs compute, storage, networking, and so forth. Our platform, it's in between the application and the infrastructure. So we know what's going on between the application layer and the underlying infrastructure, regardless if it's a data center or the cloud. So we can analyze that and see if there's any strange things going on. We know the sort of normal state of an application, and we also know when an application is starting to behave differently, and we can trigger an alarm on that to investigate that further. We also are in the middle when it comes to delivering applications and services to the end user on any device. So we do the same thing there. We monitor, we detect abnormal activity, and we do this by sort of having listening posts spread out throughout the IT architecture. We are using VMware's Carbon Black technology to do this, NSX, and other products from VMware to sort of listen for things that are going on. We know the normal state, but we can also detect things when it starts to be behaving abnormal. We do that on the endpoints, at the end user, at the identity level, at the network level, in the clouds, AWS, Azure, Google, Oracle, IBM, all the clouds out there, and of course, the data center with vSphere, and we have been running for now 20 years. So it's a new way to monitor everything. And what we do now is we collect all this data in the clouds, in the Carbon Black cloud, and analyze that. And it's quite amazing the number of intelligence data we collect on a daily basis. Millions of endpoints are being monitored every day. We collect over 1.5 billion events every day that goes into this sort of analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence engine. And Kjeld talked about, in his example with the virus that is spreading and the alarm bell going off. What if we can sort of have an alarm bell going off in Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Iceland, whatever, when something strange is happening on the other side of the planet? And that's exactly what we can do with our technology like Carbon Black here. We can have an alarm bell going off in your environment if we see something happening somewhere else in our customer base throughout the world. So this makes us able to be a little bit ahead of the hackers, hopefully. So you can start locking down or do preventive tasks in order to meet that. So where do you start? It's often a question I get when I talk to customers. It's so much. Oh my God, I want to give up. Where do I start? I always say, it's like if you're going to build a house or something, what's important? Is it the furniture, the cool stuff you put in your living room in the end? Of course, it's something you're going to look at every day. So it's important, but it's really not when it comes to IT security. What's important when it comes to IT security is what you don't see. It's sort of the foundation, the infrastructure you lay in place in the bottom before you put on all the services and applications. Again, when you build a house, you have the foundation and everything that's go into that. It's super complicated, but it's really important that this is done correct, because if it's not working, you have to tear the whole thing down again, including all the stuff you have put on top of that. So the beautiful house that's on top now, you don't see the foundation anymore. If something is bad down in the basement, in the foundation, you're screwed. You might have to start all over again. And that's a mindset you have to have when it comes to IT security as well. Of course, you can add on security afterwards as an add-on, but always think about having security as a key part of the foundation of what you are doing. So putting that into a VMware context, what does it mean? This is a slide I often use when it comes to VMware's platform. We have been talking about the software-defined platform for years now. Look at this as the foundation of your house. We have compute, storage, networking, management, automation, and of course security. If this doesn't work, the application layer on top doesn't work either. So you have to make sure that everything that's under sort of the grass here is solid, rock solid. When it comes to security at VMware, we have gone through a whole bunch of different sort of acquisitions and product enhancements in order to meet this sort of vision coming to delivering a secure foundation. And it includes everything. It includes the end user. It includes the infrastructure teams like networking, servers, and cloud teams. And of course, the InfoSec teams. The end users, it's important to have them in mind as well, even though we are talking about the foundation in the data center or the cloud. This also needs to be delivered to the end user on any device, basically. So you have to have control of access and identity, their devices, and the way they use it in order to have an end-to-end security solution. The networking teams, VMware has many cool features and tools when it comes to networking and security. NSX is a key part of that. We can do microsegmentation, we can do intrusion detection and prevention. We can also connect the different dots here and the different products and make them work in coordination with each other. So if Carbon Black detects something suspicious going on, we can trigger things within NSX that can start locking down, microsegment. It's like if somebody breaks in the main door of your house, the house will automatically go into lockdown. It will lock the doors, it will secure your valuables without you have to do anything. It's all about automation. So VMware's, again, approach to security is end-to-end from the user devices, data center, clouds, and of course, in the center here is the applications and the data. We have a lot of different tools that we use in order to sort of deliver on that promise. We have Carbon Black, of course. I already mentioned that. That's an acquisition VMware did a few years back, but it's now a key part of our security portfolio, together with the products like NSX, Cloud Health, and Workspace ONE. And they are sort of working. Our goal here is to have one holistic approach to this and have all these products work in perfect harmony. We're not quite there yet, I would say, but our goal is to connect everything together here. So back to where do you start? There's many ways to start it. You can choose to start at the end user with what they are doing. You can start with the network, and you can start, of course, with the infrastructure in the cloud. Today, I would say maybe you should look into vSphere. There's a lot of hackers now targeting vSphere as a platform, because vSphere has been for many years the de facto standard for server virtualization in the data centers. And now also vSphere is available in the clouds at Azure, AWS, Google, and others as well. So we have vSphere workload security, an offering from Carbon Black. By implementing this, we can identify the risk, because again, like I started off with, it's so much you have to take care of. If you have to do all of this manually, it would take too much of your time. Implementing vSphere workload security from Carbon Black, you will have an automated way of identifying your current status. You can do things to prevent things from going wrong, and then of course detect and respond if something's happened. And this is integrated straight into our vSphere vCenter GUI. So this is a screenshot from the vSphere client, where we now have a Carbon Black icon on the left. And you see here the appliance health, the inventory status, if it's enabled or not, if it's an update is available, all the vulnerabilities that has been discovered in your environment, and also the critical ones. So this is one of many starting points, but again, I think it's a good starting point, because again, talking about a secure foundation, vSphere is a key part of that. Without vSphere, we can't do the rest of the stuff we do. So having vSphere secured is important, and start using vSphere workload security is a good starting point. Another thing that's going on now is all the developers out there, the new kids on the block, sometimes I would say, because they are using different tools. They are creating applications and services using their tools. So important to sort of bring here the developers together with the operations team and the security teams into one platform, in order to have them do security in a different way. VMware's approach to this has been going on now for 2 years. We started off with vSphere again, enabling vSphere for containers and Kubernetes and stuff like that. And then, is it a year ago, 2 years ago? I forget, time flies. We offered something called Tanzu. So Tanzu is our platform where we sort of combine everything when it comes from an application perspective. We have our virtual servers, we have containers, microservices, and we have Kubernetes running on one platform. And on that platform, we can also gather all the different teams. The developers can use it both in the data centers and the clouds. They still use their sort of way of working and their tools, but they work now towards one platform, the same platform that the security teams and the operations teams are working on as well. And the operations teams, I'll show you the vCenter screen previously here. So the operations teams still use the tools they are used to, but now in the context with all the other teams, and also visibility into what the developers are doing with containers, microservices, and Kubernetes. So it's an important platform from VMware in order to tear down the silos and bring the different teams together. And it's important from a security perspective as well, because if the developers still are doing what they are doing without thinking about the complete value chain here, it will break, it will fail when it comes to security. So VMware's security approach now, we can take care of security from the sort of the birth of an application or a service. Somebody has an ID for a new service. You want to develop something. We have solutions when it comes to do that with Tanzu and security, when it comes to putting that into production, and when it comes to delivering that to the end user. So our sort of overall goal here is to integrate everything. Carbon Black is a key part of that, Carbon Black Cloud. Using that, we can connect all the different systems we have, vSphere, NSX, Cloud Foundation, Tanzu, Workspace ONE, and have one common architecture for security. And this will make things much, much easier for you guys out there when it comes to keeping up with everything that's going on, because it's extremely hard to keep pace with the industry and what's going on in terms of security as well. This is all good, but I would also say, do have a disaster recovery plan. Without a backup plan or a plan B or whatever you want to call it, you're in deep shit. Because everything is good from an architectural point of view, but I always want to make sure that if something goes bad, and I know Murphy's Law, something will happen sometime, make sure that you have a recovery plan. There's a lot of different tools out there from our partners, but also from VMware. We have something new here called VMware Cloud Disaster Recovery. It's again built into vCenter. You can utilize that, or you can utilize a similar solution from our partners. So do have a recovery plan in addition to the rest of the stuff I've been talking about. Without this, you're on risky ground. So to summarize and try to keep up with time here, I would give you some advice, 5 points. Number one, assume that a breach will happen sooner or later, given enough time. That's a good starting point. You will be hacked, even though everything we do to prevent it, it could happen. So having that as a starting point is a good mindset. Build with security in mind from the ground up, from the first building block of the architecture. Think security. Protect all the endpoints, and of course, keep them updated. Without keeping them updated, you will lose it. Tear down the silos. This is more from an organizational point of view. Make sure that the teams are gathered together and works towards one common goal when it comes to security. And the fifth one, have a disaster plan if something goes bad. That's my advice for today. Yep.
Cool. Thank you very much, Roger. Is there any questions to Roger in regards to this? If not now, then you are free to get in touch both with Roger and with Arrow if there's something coming up here afterwards. So thank you. Feeling a little bit more, maybe not.
You're a little bit more calm.
A little bit more calm.
Yeah, but I'm always, when I listen to somebody like Kel, I'm always like, oh my God, oh my God.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so fun,
yeah.
So
hopefully you will sleep a little bit better.
Yeah, I will. Thank you. Gern, you are ready to show us maybe some bits of Carbon Black?
I am. Can you verify that you can see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Perfect. And you see 3 windows.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm sharing the correct one. So I want to, present a little bit what we can do. We can't, of course, protect you from hardware attacks and so forth, but I'll give you some advice what you can start with. One thing I will emphasize, we can't solve with Carbon Black, but I think that's really important that you do that some of this we can solve. But if you enable macros, some people enable macros for users, disable that. I think that's really important as well. I know that we always tend to, modify and create log-on scripts. Please also create log-off scripts or have a settings applying a registry key to your Windows machines. Like if you enable macros, disable those as well. That's one of the things I think we need to emphasize a little bit more than we do today. My name is Göran. I worked in VMware Carbon Black 2.5 years. Before that, I worked at Symantec for a couple of years, 7-ish. And before that, I worked a lot with different roles within PC standardizations, both as a consultant, as an owner. So I think PC is the most important system we're having, even though people will say it's Salesforce or Mail. But I think, if you get access to one PC, typically you get access to them all. And typically we tend to take our desktops to a more not secure location. We don't have the physical parameters around our desktops or laptops that we used to have 5-10 years back. So I think it's more important now than ever to do what you can. You can't, there's no silver bullet. Oh, maybe there's a silver bullet, but not a gold bullet within security. So during my short presentation here, I know we're running out of time. I'll try to present our what we can do, and if you want to have a more deeper introduction or presentation on specific feature and function, reach out to me or Arrow, and we will take it from there. So I will start with what we're doing with our workload security bundle. It's quite complex to understand, but Carbon Black, we've captured events. I will not do a presentation. I will show the graphical interface here in the products instead. We capture events, and those events are being sent centrally for correlation and action. And depending on what module are you using of Carbon Black, we can do different things. For example, this workload, what we've done there is we've taken the Carbon Black sensor and makes it deliverable through vCenter. And if you do that, if you want to, start with a workload, it's pretty fast. I've never worked with a vCenter in my life. Before this, it took me, I would lie if I say more than, 1 day to spin everything up. And then I mean vCenter and everything. So to start with workload, it's super easy. You download a virtual appliance, install a plugin, and then you connect this workload appliance to Carbon Black Cloud using API keys. So that's how we do our communication with everything from a Carbon Black Cloud perspective. We use API. So if you have something already that you made an investment on and you want to integrate, you can go to Carbon Black and you go to partners and integration network and you can search. So we don't just integrate with ourselves. If you have Splunk or whatever that you invested in, most likely we have a connector for it. And we today I think we have like 150, 170 pre-built integrations. Because I think it's very important these days to integrate with something, and not all our customers are using VMware for this. But if you want to build things on your own as well, we have if you go to developercarbonblack.com, we have lots of APIs here as well, depending on the module. So I won't go through these more now. Starting with the workload again here, if you install this workload appliance connected to the Carbon Black Cloud, what do you want to do? Well, typically you want to inventory your machines. When you do this from the start, you have not deployed a sensor. To deploy a sensor, you go to not enabled and you just click a machine here, the one you would like to enable Carbon Black on. You can also do this via an API if that's more convenient for you. Or, have this in a golden image and the golden image be, like not registered within Carbon Black. And when it spins up, it registers with Carbon Black, and that we support for Horizon for instant clones, for example. So it's very easy to get started with it. Once you install the sensor, it will start to not do a scan, we call it a query. So it will ask the local machine, like, hey machine, what's installed? And send that to the cloud. And there we do correlation, and we have an agreement with Kenneth Security, who will then, or we will together, provide you with a vulnerability list, what you need to fix. We're not fixing it for you. We're informing that, okay, you have these critical CVs. and you can filter those on, from an asset view perspective or vulnerability view. You see it's fixed by a specific KB, and you can read more about this. And if you're familiar with kind of security, you can read a little bit more here. What's it all about? As you see here, now I'm logged in and using vCenter. I'm using here. So we have provided data center people with some security possibilities, I would say. Of course, we have more features and functions in Carbon Black than just showing CVs, but not integrated in this portal or in this product here, in this graphical user face. Then we have to go to our Carbon Black cloud portion, which I will show now. Remember, this will be really fast. It's a crash course in 15 minutes in Carbon Black Cloud. We can stand here for hours. Once again, in the Carbon Black Cloud, I can see my vulnerabilities. Once again, filtering on importance or criticality. If it's fixed, we have a query that will run every 24 hours. If you add a KB or a patch 24 hours later, maximum, that will be known by the solution, or you can run the scan manually or through an API on one or all your machines. I will now show you some alerts and what is Carbon Black. As I mentioned in the beginning, we collect events, and we've been doing this since 2002. So that's our strength. That's what we are good at, and we try to present this in a way so you can take actions. Depending on the module, you can block, for example, macros or things from Excel or PowerShell. We also have customers using Excel, starting up a PowerShell script from a macro. So that's of course also possible to allow, but you can have these in different groups or different policies. So you don't allow that for all users. As an example, in this alert here, we can see a lot of information. We can see the process name, the child and parent process. I'll just show you this very quickly here. You see, it's a lot of PowerShell things. We can see the reputation of the PowerShell. Yeah, of course, PowerShell is quite cool. We can see the, why it was blocked. I will not go through details here, but we can find out why it was blocked. And more interesting, if I see this CMD line, I can't read this. It's just numbers. Most likely it's something bad, but people tend to use PowerShell in good uses as well. But then we have a PowerShell formatter detector or formatter. So we can see, okay, I'm trying to do something with DLL import MSV CRT. Even though I'm not a hacker, I can understand, I'm not doing this for keeping my PC platform up to date. So I should block this. Maybe you should block PowerShell completely, but you can block this behavior from PowerShell starting from something, or you can just monitor this behavior, because some organizations would like to terminate everything which is bad, and some organizations would like to monitor the things which are bad. Now I'll present a little bit what we can do with finding things. To be able to prevent things, it's all about need to go through this environment here. It's all about stepping up the ladder. You can't start with a too high security rule set, because then the business will not be so happy on you. But as an example, what we try to do and what we're doing is presenting you with some test rules if you want to step up the ladder. As I mentioned, we capture events. All events are stored for 30 days in this product. And typically you start, in the middle path, but you would like to step up the ladder. And we have divided these in different behaviors. So for example, if a known malware is being started that we know the hash on, it's a bad code, still the most effective way of stopping bad things. What should we do? Yeah, you should terminate the process. Okay, but if you have something else, you know, not like a not listed application, and what's that? Well, that's something we don't know the verdict on, we don't know the hash, we never seen it before, you haven't put it on the allow list in your organization. What should happen if this binaries or DLL or whatever it is communicating over the network? Can you turn on this rule to terminate the process? You don't know that because, you know, today you haven't, maybe depending on what you're using, of course, but maybe you don't know if you could do that with great confidence. If I press here, I can typically see that, okay, machines using this policy, I have no events. In my organization, I have 260 events on 4 devices that will be stopped. Is that something I would like to dig into? I can and press here and see even further what it's doing. Now time flies by, so I'll show you one last thing, and that is our live query. You know, as I mentioned, I've been working a lot with PC standardization. Imagine having these tools a couple of years back. Here we can ask queries, and queries could be, for example, what's the verdict on this registry key? This is just, you know, in IT, we're quite good at copy paste, but if you would like to find information about the registry key, you can copy and paste and create your query and send that. And this solution is really fast. If I am running a query, I will not do that now. I have some queries run already. I can get information about my sensors, like, okay, what's the firewall status? Yeah, is it enabled or not? How does this query look like? You know, it looks into a registry key. What else? For example, if I have an ongoing threat, maybe I would like to do inventory of all open sockets right now. Here I have started an FTP. This is only for one machine. What you see here, you can export to a CSV file. For example, you can filter here, or you can filter in Excel. But if I do that, I see here, okay, I have port 21 open as we speak, connected to this IP address with this username. So this was a very of our vulnerabilities, our carbon black features and functions. So if you have some queries, don't hesitate to connect to me, and we can have a more deeper presentation of this. And that was what I wanted to present.
Thank you very much, Björn. As you said, yeah, please reach out if you have some questions regarding the last demos and presentation. Yeah, then we can also do one-to-one if someone wants that more. Yeah, go deeper into it, as you said, Björn. So. Yep. So I don't know if there's any last comments from any of you speakers before we end the show. I will say it was really 3 great presentations, so thank you very much for that. And the attendees, I hope you have found this 1.5 hour almost interesting, and you were entertained and spooked a little, but I hope you also learned something about intrinsic security and carbon black that you can take with you from here. So yeah, but please reach out if there's some questions or anything after this. Yeah, we can help you direct the questions to the right person. So so thank you very much for all 3 of you. Great work. So
thank you.
Thanks.
So
and have a good summer.
Yeah, the same.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Okay,
yeah.
bye.
Good weekend. Bye.